So, welcome everyone. I'm so excited for you to join Pearl and me for another conversation that will meander and wander. Where we were just speaking into before we started recording was the sense that there is a season for everything. And that sense that, in my case, it's that season to drive the kids to summer camp. And in Pearl's case, well, Pearl, tell us about your season right now that you're in
Well,
this moment.
my season is significantly well. It encompasses a whole lot of those pieces because I would perceive I'm harvesting the result of many hockey camps. My husband, God bless his heart, decided when our elder son was 2 that he needed skates for Christmas, thus beginning a chain that has ended up today in the NHL. Not, so harvest, take your children to summer camp, hockey camp, whatever camp, and
Mhm.
then sit back, relax, and say, this is going to be a ride.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yes.
that's
Mm,
I have a 7-year-old grandchild and a
right.
25-year-old grandson. So, there's a lot of hockey in there, those 25 years, and the 25 that preceded that, because the dad is now 51.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Oh. Mm,
the seasons take us, Marissa, to, and we mentioned it earlier in the morning, take us to croning or the queen or
mhm.
wherever it is where we can become who we were meant to be.
Mm, yes. Yes. Well, in that light, I'd love to share a passage from your first book. It's make sure I have the title right. I, the woman, rose.
Planted the tree.
I, the woman, planted the tree. Yes. So this is a passage that really sat with me. Um, I look in my own mirror where I see reflected back yet another image, the image of the older woman. I understand the imperative to invent, create, write myself, and reclaim the past when healing and the wise arts were associated with old wise woman, rather than the decaying, disgusting, rolling flesh and ugly, wrinkled evil of demonic witches.
That's quite the sentence,
Yeah,
Marissa.
it is indeed. It is indeed. It's two sentences, and my oh my, what a journey you take us deep into with that.
I'm delighted with that sentence, um, because my journey through dreams, I mean, that was a long journey. It's still an ongoing journey. Um, and that journey through dreams left behind somewhere in the dust, I'm hoping it completely obliterated, transformed. Um, what's the word I'm searching for? Created that patriarchal image of the old woman who really is not necessary in the world. And so they burned witches.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were
Mm-hmm.
not only not necessary, they were a demonic force. I love to laugh with some of my dream clients and say, we've all returned. All those witches they burned, we've just come back.
Right.
And so there's 12 or 13 million of us around the planet doing our thing, Marissa.
Yes.
And so for the younger women, like I did not start out like this as a young girl. I
Mm-hmm.
started out in depression and issues. I had a wonderful family and a wonderful family life, but I was 43 when I woke up and started to find myself.
Mm.
Now that was an image from the 60s, where you went looking for yourself. And I used to laugh at it and say, well, for heaven's sakes, I'm here. I know where I'm at.
Right.
But it had deeper meaning as I grew a little older.
Mm.
But when I link those 3 sentences together, and I think wise women, witches, I mean, I'm awfully glad I looked in that mirror,
Mm.
because you bring forth your inner child. You bring together your inner child, your maiden, and your crone, because we're like those Russian dolls. We fit one inside the other.
Right. Right.
And I don't think a lot of women have woken up yet. And I'm hoping that those who read your work, those who read my work, together they wake up. I mean,
Mhm.
just yesterday, I told you this morning when we first came on, I got 4 new books in the mail. Now there's a delight. And the 5th one's on its way. One of them is called The Wisdom Jesus. Now
Mm.
listen to the first passage, the very first page. It's just it's an, what do they call, an epigram.
Mhm.
Um, if you are searching, you must not stop until you find.
Mm.
When you find, however, you will become troubled.
Mm. Mm.
Your confusion will give way to wonder.
Mm.
In wonder, you will reign over all things. Your sovereignty will be your rest. Your sovereignty will be your rest.
Wow.
Now, that's from Cynthia Bourgeot, and it's it's the Gospel of Thomas is where it comes from, if you're
Mhm.
familiar with the Gospel of Thomas. And she creates a beautiful picture of this center of our being, which comes in the wisdom tradition, and it radiates out in all directions. And it goes to Celtic Ireland. That's one direction, west.
Mhm.
It goes to Persia and
Mhm.
India and China, that's east. It goes southwest to Africa,
Mhm.
up the coast to France. I mean, that's what happens with wise women, I think. Their energy radiates out. The queen has become sovereign. The crone has become sovereign.
Mhm.
And we kind of just do our own thing.
Mm. Yeah.
So back to the summer camp. When you're taking your children to summer camp, we have to start whatever age we are and take ourselves to summer camp
Mhm.
and learn anew to be a child.
Right.
So the
Yeah.
crone is dancing like a child, having
Mm.
fun, playing like a child, to
Yes.
relearn who they really are or to get in touch with their sovereignty.
Yes. And that's so much as I've seen it too, for me, I think in terms of the Celtic knot, and I'm always seeing the princess, queen, and wise woman, the
Right.
archetypes I know and use so well, so much, that there is, in many ways, it's the princess and the wise woman who have a bit more in common than the queen, because they are meeting at either ends of the spectrum. And then, of course, we recognize that the spectrum is not an arc or a straight line, it's a great circle, right?
Mhm.
And we're the ouroboros constantly moving through, and we're the serpent who is continuing to swallow her tail and to continue to wind around, because of course we're reclaiming that image for the witches and for Eve and all of the foremothers. And that sense that, I think in terms of the princess on the cliff and the queen in the castle and the wise woman in the cave, right? And there's that sense of wildness at both edges of being standing there at the edge of the world, which to me is standing on the cliffs on the Aran Islands. The cave is that place where there's so many, there's one in Roscommon, the Cave of Cats, what I think of, where the wise woman was born and birthed. And those came to me so naturally. And I realize I'm leaping around here, but we'll follow the
No,
spirals. I wanted there to be a castle in my book that I really described, because I talk about going to the cliffs and I talk about going to a specific cave. I
yes.
never found a castle. And then, of course, I realized, wait, but I'm an American woman who didn't end up staying and settling in Ireland. I had to come back here. It is that place in the epigram you read, sovereignty is where we rest. And it's not rest in the sense of stop and wait for everything to come to us and say, well, here I am in my throne. I want all of it. It's the place where we sit and we wait for the books to come
And we
and we
wait, we are
find that
home.
place.
We're finally
Home.
home.
Yeah.
We find, and I don't know that we stay there every day, but
Mm-mm.
we find where home is.
Right.
And we go out from home, which is our center.
Mhm.
And that's a powerful, powerful place to live, is if we can live in our center, which I mean, the castle, I mean, I think in interior terms all the time,
Mhm.
because I think our world has spent so much time. I mean, even traveling out to space, it's like, well, I travel in space every day in
Mhm.
meditation.
Yes.
And we go to the edge, and I don't know, the edge of the world. When I think of the edge of the world, I think of the descent
Inanna.
in Anna.
Mhm.
And I think of, well, and in Christian terms and in Inanna, the two have not, many people haven't put them together, but they're the same thing.
Mm. I think we
One
should
is
probably
the,
pause and tell a little bit of that story to help people, but I don't want to interrupt your flow.
no, well, I think perhaps sometimes you leave people to figure it out. I mean, seriously, if
Yeah.
I want to learn the descent to Inanna,
Mhm.
Sylvia Pereira writes a great book about initiation of women in the descent to Inanna. And for those Christians who are listening, or everybody, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, it's simply the earth that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about some hyperbolic thing around heaven and hell, because I
Mm.
don't believe in them.
Mhm.
But I'm talking about that descent to yourself.
Yes.
And it's, you jump off the edge of the world.
Mm.
That's what you're doing.
Mm.
Well, of course, you're not really jumping. What was the island you mentioned, or the place you said was the edge of the world?
Oh, for me, it's on the Aran Islands on Inishmore.
Yeah, I was there once.
There's a there's a fort called Dubhcathair, which is the Black Fort. Now you don't know why
Right.
it's there. Was it defensive? Was it ceremonial? Why would you put a fort at the edge of the world?
Yeah, but we all want to go to the edge of the world. I actually went to the Aran Islands, to the edge of the world. It's a great place to write,
Yes.
because it just takes you to a different aspect of yourself, and there you sit
Hmm.
and you write.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I would invite people to go to the edge, to the abyss, go to the edge of the earth and jump.
Mm.
Now, when I say that, I think I hear the answer coming back. No, I don't want to jump.
Right.
And I go, come to the edge
Mm. Hmm.
and jump.
Right.
And finally, they get sufficient centeredness, I don't
Mm.
know, and they
Mm.
jump
Yeah.
and they take the descent. In
Yes.
dream work, that might be just an elevator.
Right. Right.
So, but I mean, you're right, we're going around. But I thought also, when you mentioned the cave,
Hmm.
there's another Christian image, comes out of Ireland, very Celtic,
Hmm. Hmm.
very Celtic. But it's also where we take people in dream work, is into the cave to explore their inner world.
Right. Right.
So I see so many parallels in the work and the writing that you do and that I do,
Mm.
that I think it's kind of a marriage made in heaven,
Yes. Yes.
because we
Yes.
can explore those ideas.
Hmm. The idea that what you mentioned that I find so fascinating, and I've been talking to clients lately who have an awareness of, as they're writing, they have an awareness of there's the more. There are those other realms that are informed by their spirituality, that are informed by their shadow, that are informed by their fears, and that sense of this is what really matters.
Right.
But I need to do my professional writing first. I need to stand in. It's almost like the sovereignty of the world has sold us based on our degrees and our status and who we're supposed to be as queen or wise woman. Because, of course, one of the other archetypes that is woven in my work, but I don't necessarily name her directly, is the wild woman, because I think she's everywhere in all of us and all these parts of us. I think how I've come to look at it is that we access this wildness as princess, queen, and wise woman, perhaps in a different way. But that sense of the descent is that sense of, and that leap is into that the wildness within ourselves, and that wildness that's out there at the other edge of the horizon, or in the darkness of the cave, or even in the basement of the house.
Which is where you often travel in dreams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I spent many a meditation sitting at the top of the stairs, taking, and in my imagination,
Right.
going one step down, another step down, making the descent. And in the descent, we are being stripped. Inanna was stripped of her 7 ornaments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're stripped of identity because we need a new one. To find our authentic self, you have to give up something old.
Yeah.
That can be very, very traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
Dismembered. Now think about being dismembered. Now, of course, it's in your dream world,
Right.
but it will scare you silly.
Yeah.
Because in a dream, you're there.
Right.
So dismemberment and being stripped, but it will take you to your wild woman, because you will know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And wild woman knows who she is, and she runs with the wolves. And when her children get in danger, she just grabs them by the scruff of the neck and pulls them back.
Yes. Yes.
We just won't allow them to be hurt.
Well, I have to share a memory of, I brought my daughter, who's now 11, I brought her when she was 8 to the Aran Islands,
Yes.
and her hat blew off at the edge of a cliff, and she went for it. And I will never, I mean, she went, no one's built a fence around these 500-foot cliffs straight down into the crashing ocean. And my palms sweat just to think of it. And that sense, I mean, it was that goddamn pink Red Sox hat. Every time I see it, I cringe, and I say, thank you to every one of the guides and gods that stopped her just in time, because she was beyond my reach.
Yeah.
And there's also that sense of, but I took her to my most wild place, and I'm so grateful she was there. And I've been there 13 times.
Yeah.
I've been there in moments of, I was there when our hair all stood on end, because we were watching thunder and lightning come in over the cliffs of Moher towards us. And I thought that was the wildest, most foolish moment I'd ever had there. And then flashback, I go back nearly 20 years later, and there was that moment at the edge. And I've never dreamed of it, thank God, because I think the dream would half kill me, because I got to do it in real life.
Yes, it just might. It certainly would scare you silly.
Yeah.
But that's essentially the wild woman, the wild woman who runs with the wolves, says, child, away from the edge.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
the hat is sailing. Well, you're going to have to let it go, sweetheart. We'll go down to the bottom and get it later if we have to.
Oh. In our next lives, when we come back as mermaids.
But we do remember those moments very, very clearly. Yeah. We also remember the freedom moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, speaking of memories, in the healing process, I mean, it took a very long time, Marisa. The woman planted the tree, was written in between 2015 and 2018. But it was really what was happening in 1988 and 89, 1990 and 91. During that time, I went to watch my daughter figure skate, and I cried the whole time. And I mean, people around me are kind of looking, and I cried for my lost freedom as a child. Because that child won a gold medal that day in her skating, just because she was so fluid and so fluent and so gorgeous. And she was, I don't know, born in 79, so she was 11 or 12. Mm-hmm. The beauty of the wild feminine, the free wild feminine. I mean, I can see her in her beautiful blue. She had sort of, that deep, deep indigo blue.
Mhm.
And of course, that was her skating costume. And I can see her clearly. That image of the wild child.
Mm. Mm. What I'm hearing in that is when we move from dismembered to remembered
Yeah.
so fluently and vividly.
Yeah.
And what you had said before is how much we fear dismemberment. We fear that sense of going into the darkness. But of course, when we recognize the medicine that comes with remembering, we're being called to recognize we're already dismembered. It's not that when we go to the edge of the abyss and we dive deep into our own selves and our spirits and our souls,
We
then
sail with the
something
Red
might
Sox hat
happen.
to the bottom. We
Say it
sail
again.
with the Red Sox hat to the bottom of the cliff.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
think about that. That's quite a beautiful image. That Red Sox hat goes, and your heart pounds, and you go, and it is dismemberment.
Yeah.
But it shifts your being right on that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I interrupted you, but that's kind of what women do in this weaving when we speak. It's constant
Absolutely.
weaving.
Yes. Yes. And there's sacredness in that layering, right? Because we have waited our turn. We've been taught to wait our turns. We've been taught that. I mean, I was born in the same year as your daughter, I realize. And, there was a new way of parenting at that time that said, go be louder. We'll take you to the lessons, go out there and shine, be on the ice alone, be on the stage alone. And there was such glory in that. And I can also say that there was that sense of reaching my own 20s and saying, oh, I can't be that loud, brash, redheaded girl who always thinks she's the smartest one in the room and succeed in parts of life. I will turn people off. I think I had freedoms through childhood and into my teens that I took from myself once I hit my 20s, because I realized I had damaged relationships. I had told some women what I thought about the guy they were going to marry, and I wondered why she didn't want to be friends with me anymore. And so then there was that. I did this for quite some time, and then there was that new reemergence in the next decade of my life in which I said, oh wait, how do I do the alchemy of that brash redheaded girl who was taught to be at the center of the stage and the one who realized I've said too much.
Right.
That was the beginning of the next chapter. And it was, yes, my queen entering with her, where the elements come together, perhaps.
So I'm wondering, I'm wondering if there's another spin on that. And I'm thinking to myself, well, there's the passages, there's this almost magical sense of passages of life. Gail Sheehy writes a book called Passages.
Mm.
If you're the age of my daughter, and you are, that simply means that you weren't around to read that particular book. You know what I mean? It doesn't come into your life, but it came into mine somewhere in my 40s, and I read passages, and we go through these 7-year passages. And it comes up in dream work, those numbers. Numerology comes up often in dream work. Symbology, of course, is the basic root of dream work. And 7 is a sacred number. And people will come and they will say, they come for dream work, and I will ask them, well, how old are you? And they go, I'm 42. Aha, well, that's interesting. Divide 42 by 6, and what do you get? Oh, 7. Well, everything's shifting under my feet, Pearl. Yeah, pretty much. And then they come and they're 70.
Right.
And they say, well, shouldn't I be winding down? And I say, no, you probably should just be winding up.
Yes.
But you're going to make another passage.
Right.
You're 10 times 7. Gosh, it's 70.
Right.
And so what is it if these are normal passages, but the patriarchy gets in the way and says, no, Be the nice, be passive, be kind, be gentle.
Mhm.
Don't be the wild woman.
Mhm.
Put that red hair, cut that red hair short.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
come on now.
Yep.
You really, older women don't wear long hair. Seriously, hair is a feminine symbol.
Right. Right.
So there's just so many pieces to all of this
Mm.
that I just I love the conversation.
Me too. Me too.
When you say you're the age of my daughter, I just find that so fascinating
Yeah.
because I seriously think that the older women, the crones, the queens, and you can be that at 20, you can be that at 30, you can be that at 40, but you also grow into a certain kind of experiential wisdom
Mhm.
that is a bit more difficult. So you might have to be the queen mother.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. And it's not linear because we have that child until we die. That child isn't going anywhere. So the passages of life are maiden, mother, crone, princess. What's your middle one? My
Queen.
mind just went on a bird walk.
Queen.
Queen. So queen and wise woman.
Mhm.
I mean, being the wise woman, you've seen 4-year-olds be wise women.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So it's not, oh yeah, well, I'll just wait till I'm 73 and I'll be wise.
Right.
Not unless you find yourself, not unless you dismember some of your old identities.
And I think our world depends on us embodying our wisdom throughout our lives. What
It,
is global healing? It's all of us finding our wise woman elder energy within us so we can think forward 7 generations, so
yeah,
that we can take care of our earth today. I feel like this is a beautiful sort of closing point for this part of our conversation. And I also feel like I need to say one other thing is that right now our skies are orange today from fires
yes.
out in the West, which is not that far from you. I'm in New York and you're out in Alberta in Western Canada. It's just one more underlining of that deep connection.
And
And
Marisa, on that note, our skies are gray. We are breathing smoke.
yes, yes,
I
yes.
mean, thank God we got a bit of rain last night to scrub the air a bit. I
Mhm.
mean, my grandkids are asthmatic. Three
Mm,
three boys next door. My daughter's children. She was married at 20, turned 21 a week before her dad died, had 3 babies, and so they're now 15, 17, and 19.
wow.
They're finished summer camp. But that back to what you were saying, the skies, we do have to share our wisdom. We have to heal for
Yes,
the world.
yes.
And the seventh generation, I mean, Black Elk predicted that. When if you read Black Elk Speaks, he
Mhm.
predicted the coming of indigenous wisdom back to mainstream in the seventh generation, and here it is.
Mm, mm. We'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much, Pearl. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisa.